Hey guys, so my name is Desmond Berry. I'm working with the Environmental Coffee House right now. We are in Flint, Michigan. I don't know if any of you watching have heard of the water crisis here in Flint, Michigan, but it's a pretty extreme one. It's gone on for a number of years now. I'm actually sitting in the backyard of a resident here named Vicki Marks. I'm going to flip the camera here in a moment and we're going to talk to Vicki, and Vicki's just going to share, her story with you. So if you could, as you're coming in, let me know you can hear this. I want to do a sound check real quick, make sure we're loud and clear. So let's see, who's Judy? You're in here. Judy, let me know how my sound is before I flip the camera around. Because I do have some mics and I can adjust if I need to, but I want to make sure the sound is good before we start this interview. Still waiting to see if anybody would let me know. Great sound? Okay, awesome. Well then, before, not going to waste any more time, I'm just going to flip the camera around here and introduce you to Vicki Marks, Flint resident. So there we go. Hi, Vicki.
Hi, Desmond.
If you could take a moment and just let folks know how long you've lived in the Flint area, if you would, first of all.
I've lived in Flint 13 years.
13 years.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, how long at this location, Vicki?
It'll be 7 years in October.
Okay. You and so where are we at in, say, relation to downtown Flint? How close are we?
About a mile, maybe a mile and a quarter.
Okay. So, folks, as you heard that, we are right in the heart of Flint. How many? Well, you probably don't know how many neighbors you have on this block, but it looks like a pretty full neighborhood here.
Yeah, this is the College Cultural Neighborhood. This is a neighborhood that they are not planning on gentrifying, like the other side of Robert T. Longway.
Okay. So 7 years here,
Mm-hmm.
and do you own this home?
Yes.
All right. And so, I've worked with you a little bit in the past, and I've been trying to share a bit of your story, especially with regards to some of the DEQ. And for folks that are watching, I'll explain. The DEQ is the Department of Environmental Quality for Michigan here, and they are tasked with enforcing the different drinking water standards throughout the state of Michigan. That's the neighbor's dog. So, you don't like us. If you could then, talk a little bit about what the DEQ has been doing at your house with regards to your water testing, and then let's talk about some of those results.
Okay, I first got my water tested when the National Guard came into town in January of 2016.
You said the National Guard came into town?
To pass out water, when
Okay.
they finally declared it was an emergency.
Okay.
They had the National Guard going to the fire stations to pass out water and load water into cars. First time I went up there, they gave me like 2 cases of water, and I asked for a test kit. I said you had to go in and give your address. So I went in and talked to a gentleman, and he says, yep, you turn the faucet on and you run it for a few minutes in your bathtub, and then you fill up the bottle.
In your bathtub?
In the bathtub, yeah. So I went and did that and turned it in, and it came back 18 parts per billion.
And so for the viewers,
15 parts per billion is what the federal standards are to be considered safe for lead. As far as I'm concerned, it should be 0.
It should be 0, I agree.
But 15 is what they consider safe. So the following month, I had someone from the Sentinel testing program knock at my door and ask me if I'd participate in the Sentinel water testing program. What that is, it's the same lab that the samples from the water pods go to. But I believe that's the test that they base the lead levels on the entire city of Flint on, are certain houses that they test. So they tested my water once a month from February of 2016 until February of 2017 this year. And when they stopped, I started doing the 2-bottle test kits at the water pods and continued to have my water tested.
And so the 2-bottle kits at the water pods, those are for residents to pick up to test their own water, is that?
Right, they've got instructions in there how to draw the water, and they've got a form you fill out. You drop it back at the water pod, they give you a receipt with the test number on it so you can track it on the computer.
So what do those instructions say for collecting the water sample?
They don't want you to run your water for a minimum of 6 hours before you test it. With the 2-bottle kit, you take the top off the little bottle, take the top off the big bottle, you turn your faucet on and collect the water in the little bottle until it's up to a certain point. Put that down, and then you fill up the bigger bottle.
Okay.
And then you shut the water off.
Okay.
And you just put the caps on them, fill out the form, put the form pack in the Ziploc bag, and drop it back at a water pod. Or in the case of the Sentinel, they call me a couple days before they're going to drop a bottle off. They'll drop it off on my front porch, and there'll be a date on there when they're going to pick it up. So I'll leave it out on my front porch, and they'll pick it up from there.
Okay. Okay. So I'm sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to make sure we understood how the water samples are collected, and so we can learn about that chain of custody, I guess. So go ahead. I'm sorry, Vicki. Continue on. We were talking about the water samples that you started in 2016, and then lately you've been doing them yourself here.
Yes. They were all Sentinel until February or end of January this year. They had a program for people that had high lead levels off and on, and that were under a certain income, and they would come to your house and replace your kitchen and bathroom faucets.
Okay.
So they came to my house the end of January, one of the contractors that's replacing lines now, and they came in and they had a bathroom faucet that would fit, but they didn't have a kitchen faucet because my kitchen faucet comes out of the back wall. The only faucets they had came back off the back of the sink. So they said, well, they couldn't help me with that, so I worked at Home Depot. I ran to Home Depot and got one that would fit and replaced the kitchen faucet myself. And then they left me 2 test kits and told me to test the water 10 days after the faucets were changed. Those weren't through the Sentinel. And the kitchen came back at 32 parts per billion. The bathroom sink came back 4 parts per billion.
32 parts per billion, so double the EPA action level.
Yes, a little over.
And what was the date?
That was on February 5th of this year.
February 5th, okay. All right.
And then on the 21st, I got a test kit from Sentinel.
Okay.
And checked my kitchen faucet. It was 74 parts per billion.
So 74 parts per billion.
Yeah. And then the next 3 I did, March 20th, April 4th, April 17th, and April 20th. The first 3 were bottles that I dropped off at the water pods. They came back 4, 5, and 10. And then, then when I went to drop off the one on April 17th, I went out on my front porch to get the mail, and lo and behold, there's another bottle from Sentinel Testing saying, we're happy you decided to take part in our continuing testing. Okay, so I filled that bottle up 3 days later. They said it came back at 8 parts per billion.
Okay.
So, the following month, I thought, I wonder what the difference would be testing them closer together. So I had a spare 2-bottle kit from a water pod, and the 17th of May, I forget what time it was. It's like, well, it was 11 and a half hours apart that I drew these water samples. I drew the first one for the water pod drop-off, the 2-bottle kit, and then 11 and a half hours later, I drew water for the Sentinel kit. They both went in the same day. One went to the water pod, one they picked up. The one that I did at the water pod came back at 59 parts per billion, and then 11 and a half hours later, the Sentinel one came back at 9 parts per billion.
So the water pod comes up at 59 parts per billion for lead, but then the Sentinel one came back at 9 parts per billion for lead,
Yeah,
and it was 11 and a half hours apart.
Yeah, and I didn't
Between
run the water in between.
You didn't run, okay,
No.
that's important,
Yes,
okay.
yes.
Good, okay.
So I thought, well, that was interesting. And so on June 4th, I sent in a water pod, and it came back 95 parts per billion. June 21st, I sent in a water pod, and it came back at 88 parts per billion. And then July 5th, I sent in one to the water pod, and it came back 3,818 parts per billion.
3,018 parts per billion for lead.
3,818 parts per billion. Almost 4,000 parts per billion.
And for the viewers at home that are just now joining, according to the EPA's Safe Drinking Water Standards, 15 parts per billion is what they call the action level. 15 parts per billion. According to the CDC, they say it should be 0 parts per billion. Okay, the Center for Disease Control says 0 parts per billion. The United States Environmental Protection Agency says as long as it's below 15 parts per billion, you can go ahead and drink that, but it is considered the action level. Now, Vicki just reports that on July 5th, 2017, so this month, her lead levels, according to the samples that were run, were 3,818 parts per billion. Okay, and she's got one more to talk about right here too, so I'm going to quit and let her tell us this new number.
Okay, the July 10th, I got a call from the Sentinel program saying they were going to drop off a single bottle to test. So I got my 2-bottle test kit, and I drew water for the 2-bottle test kit at 9 p.m. Didn't run the water, went to bed, and I get up at 3 a.m. in the morning. Got up at 3 a.m. and ran the water for the Sentinel test.
Okay.
They were both picked up like a couple days later. The Sentinel picked up their bottle, and I took the other one to the water pod. The Sentinel test came back 4,138 parts per billion. So it had gone up 320 parts per billion in a week.
In a week.
And I still haven't...
I don't know where he's at right now.
Yeah. I checked before you got here online, and they still don't have the water pod sample posted online.
Okay.
So obviously that's still in the works.
So as of July, what does it say there? July 12th?
Yeah, that was the day I drew.
As of July 12th, what you knew was that the water drawn from your kitchen faucet was at 4,138 parts per billion for lead in your drinking water here in the city of Flint.
Yes.
Oh my God.
But the thing that...
Folks, I sure hope you're hearing this and you're sharing this out. Vicki Marks is a Flint resident. She's been here in this house now for 7 years, and she wants her story to be told. She wants the world to understand that the situation in Flint is not improving, regardless of what you hear. Got a little bit of wind here. Regardless of what you're hearing through the mainstream media, you're not hearing facts. I'm sitting here with her currently, just reporting facts. You know, none of this is scripted. This is as raw as it comes. And you know, I will share on this site. I'll also be sharing some of the actual copies of the results that Vicki has shared with me. So sorry about that, Vicki. I want people to really understand the magnitude of what we're talking about here. Can we talk about this?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, folks, if I probably don't have the camera angle, but I'm going to do it right now. If you notice, Vicki suffers. She has a little bit of a shake going on. If you would explain what's going on there, Vicki, and how long you've been this way.
I was diagnosed with Parkinson's in October of 2015. I was showing symptoms in April of that year after I'd been drinking this water for a year. And then I continued to drink it for 6 months afterwards until they came out and said, oh, it's an emergency, don't drink it anymore. But I'd been diagnosed with Parkinson's before that. And after I got diagnosed with Parkinson's, it just kind of came out of left field. I got on the computer and started Googling it and found out that high lead and magnesium levels will bring Parkinson's on. I don't know if my mother had a tremor in her right hand towards the end of her life, but she was never diagnosed with Parkinson's. She died of congestive heart failure. But I've got 5 sisters and a brother, and none of them have any symptoms. But after I was diagnosed and then they came out saying there was lead in the water, I went back to my neurologist in January and asked him to draw blood to check for lead. Well, by then I'd already been drinking bottled water for over 30 days, and lead only stays in your bloodstream for 30 days.
Okay.
After that, it goes to your bones and your organs.
Okay.
So I tested negative for that, but I asked him, I says, would high lead bring that on? And he says, it could. He says, usually it's high magnesium. DEQ only checks for lead and copper because that's all they're required to do.
Sure.
So heaven knows how many other heavy metals or whatever are in there. They don't test, they don't care. It's like they don't test for the bacteria, the legionnaires that killed the people in Flint.
Now recently, didn't you take it upon yourself to go have blood work done again?
Yes, I had went to my personal physician in June, and he drew a sample, and it came back normal. So I went Wednesday, the 26th, this last Wednesday, to the health department because they will draw the blood for free and give you an immediate result. So after trying to track down somebody to check your blood for free on the state's website, don't believe everything you read on the state's website, because I spent 2.5 days on the phone and running from place to place before I found the right place that would do the free blood testing.
So the free blood testing does take place in Flint, though.
At the health department in the McGee building downtown on Saginaw Street. Okay,
so if Flint residents are watching this, just know that at the health department downtown at the McGee building, you can have your blood drawn for free, not flea, free, so they can test your the level of lead in your blood.
You do need to make an appointment, though.
Okay, so make an appointment.
Yeah, but they did a finger stick, and the nurse says, I'll be back. It takes about 3 minutes to run the test. Well, she came back in, and she handed me this card saying, your lead is way over what it should be.
Hold it right up here to the camera if you'd like.
She says it's almost 4 times what would be considered safe.
So your lead levels are 38.4 micrograms?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I notice on the card there it says 10 plus means it's high and quick action is required.
Mm-hmm.
What do they mean with quick action, Vicki?
I'm assuming they mean you should run to your doctor, but I can't run to my doctor with just this card. So I'm waiting for them to mail me the full blood screen so that I can go and discuss it with my doctor. It says discuss it with your talk to your doctor or health department. Okay. Well, that was the health department, and although the nurse was a very nice, pleasant person, she gave me, a flyer about fight lead with healthy food and clean your aerators. Huh. Basically the same stuff that CORE sticks on your door twice a month. So anyway, I'm waiting to get the full copy of the blood report to take it to my physician to find out what they're going to do. And as
what are some of the treatments then with somebody that has levels of lead in their blood 4 times the quick action rate or the quick action level? What are some of the treatments then that can be done?
Well, this is a sheet that I got from my family physician. I go to Genesis,
okay,
the hospital affiliated clinic, and it says greater than 19, greater than 40, or greater than 19, greater than 19 years of age. Consider chelation therapy when symptoms of lead toxicity are present. But the chelation therapy is something that most insurances won't pay for. What chelation is it's a drug that they either inject into you intravenously, or they're oral pills depending on how high your lead level is, or for like a baby or somebody that's and not really healthy, they've got a cream they can put on the bottom of your foot, and what it does is it pulls the lead out of your bones and your organs and collects to this drug that they put in you and flushes out through your kidneys and your liver. Actually, I know somebody who's going through that right now, and basically it's the same as going through chemotherapy. He hasn't been able to work, but I'm going to, if they put me through that and I'm not able to work, how am I going to keep a roof over my head for the next 18 weeks? I think the treatments last.
And so I have to ask the question. I can't, and for the viewers, just so you know, I can't see comments. So if there's comments, I apologize. If there's questions, I apologize. I'm not able to see those at this time. But there's a question I have to ask Vicki, and the question is, when you talk about this therapy and how most insurances won't cover it, if your doctor prescribes this therapy for you, are you insured to be able to do that?
I've got Medicaid, and what they cover is what they deem as proper, not necessarily what the doctor does. When I was first diagnosed with the Parkinsons, my doctor wanted me on a certain medication. He fought back and forth with the insurance company for almost 6 weeks, and finally had to put me on a different medication.
So there's a chance you may not be able to receive this therapy based on your based on Medicaid, based on the insurance you carry right now.
Yeah.
So then I have to ask another question, because it's eating at me. Is the city of Flint going to pay for this therapy for you?
No.
How about the state of Michigan?
No. The health coverage that the state of Michigan extended to the residents of Flint only covers kids up to the age of 23 or pregnant women. So as far as any medical costs that I've got that come from the lead, that's either, if Medicaid doesn't pick it up, then it comes out of my pocket.
So it comes out of your pocket, and so we established the lead levels in your home at your kitchen faucet are over 4,000 parts per billion as of the 12th of July. And do you have to pay for that water?
Oh yes.
Yeah. What's the average monthly water bill?
Normally anywhere from $75 to $95 to $100.
And what do you use the water for, since it's, you know, I heard a figure that 5,000 parts per billion gets treated as hazardous waste when it comes to lead in water.
Yes.
And so you're within 700 parts per billion of having hazardous waste come from your faucet. So what do you use the water for?
Well, I was using it to wash my dishes, do my laundry, and I was showering in it. But this is the kicker. They don't monitor bathing water, shower water. So, but the only way I could have gotten this lead in my blood was from showering in the water, because I have not drank any water out of this house or cooked with it since November of 2015.
And back then, your blood lead levels weren't showing up as any lead in your blood, correct?
Right. And well, it was 30 days after I'd stopped drinking the water.
Okay.
I strictly went to bottled water to cook and drink with.
But you were getting results back on your blood saying you were okay with regards to lead in your blood. And up until recently, when you went to the health department, was when you discovered 38.4 was your levels, and 10 is the quick action. And so you weren't drinking the water, you were bathing in the water.
Right.
And
showering in it.
Showering in it.
And even though the DEQ won't admit it, there are environmental doctors, water people that specialize in chemical water testing, whatever, that say showering in the water, hot water, is even worse than drinking it, because the lead condenses, it vaporizes in the steam, so even if you don't get it in your mouth or your eyes, you're inhaling it, and you can get more lead that way than you can drinking the water. But because they're not required to test bath water, they don't consider that a problem. But
so
I've got proof that you can get toxic levels of lead from showering in your water when your lead's that high. This morning, the water test that I took in a 2-bottle test, and I took it out of the bathtub. That's the first time I've done that.
You did? Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So it'll be interesting to see what that comes back, because that's the first time, except for the initial one back in January of 2016 that I did in the bathtub.
Now, I got to ask a crazy question here, but I'm sure the viewers want to know how this is happening to your home right here. How do you think these lead levels are getting so high from your faucet? What is your theory? And then what have you been told, I guess?
Well, I started in February questioning some of the people that know all this about why my lead levels were spiking. And I was told, no, it's your fixtures. I said, nope, I had my fixtures replaced, and I was just a month later, it's 74 parts per billion.
So you went through and replaced your faucets and stuff?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, in the end of January this year.
Okay.
And when I tested it 10 days after I changed the faucets, the kitchen still came back at 32 parts per billion. But then I tested it again when a sentinel test came, about 2 weeks later, and it came back at 74 parts per billion.
So even after changing your faucet fixtures, your lead levels began to rise. So we know it's not the fixtures. I mean, that's a pretty obvious,
right.
I don't think you have to be a plumber. I don't think you have to be a scientist. I think you can use common sense in this situation to understand that if you have lead levels at a certain spot, and then you go through and you put brand new fixtures in, faucets in, and then your lead levels continue to rise, it's abundantly clear to me, just as a individual utilizing common sense, that this isn't something to do with your fixtures.
Right.
So what are they saying then?
Well, actually, I had a gentleman out from the DEQ yesterday. He brought 3 test kits, and because according to him, when he diagnosed the latest problem over the phone, this is my line where it comes into my basement.
So that comes into your basement.
Yeah,
okay.
it's
that feeds your whole house.
Yeah, it's copper where it comes in the house. It's brass, brass fitting there, and then the shut-off valve is brass.
Okay.
There's a little piece of brass there, and then there's this little bit of galvanized here.
Just we're talking about this
little elbow.
That galvanized elbow.
And then this is brass, and it goes into the water meter. Well, when
so you don't have lead service pipes to your home?
Not according to the city, but
they're pointing out copper.
Yeah, I've got copper. Copper's in my house.
Okay.
And according to the city records, I've got copper running from the street to my house, or at least from the water shutoff.
Okay. Okay.
But what's on the other side of the water shutoff to the main could be lead, could be galvanized. I don't know.
Okay.
They won't know until the end of next year when they get around to replacing water lines in this area.
The end of next year for your area?
Yes.
Next year?
Yes.
2018. So for another 14, 15, 16 months, you're going to be left with your water in the state that it's in, and it's over 4,000 parts per billion of lead currently. And so somebody actually thought maybe that galvanized elbow had something to do with it. This 2 inches, this 2-inch piece of galvanized pipe.
Yeah, this gentleman went and diagnosed that over the phone, and then Thursday when I was on Channel 12, they came out and interviewed me, and I showed them the same picture and said, oh yeah, he diagnosed it over the phone. That's what's causing my lead to spike.
I'll cut that out of there and put you in a new one right now, and I bet you the parts per billion isn't going to drop. That's a 1-inch elbow there.
Yeah.
That can't contain that much lead.
Right. So anyway, but after I was on Channel 12, the gentleman got in touch with me again and came out to my house yesterday and brought 3 test kits. He says, well, went down and looked at that, and he says, oh, no. He says, that much lead wouldn't be coming from that little bit of galvanized.
And this is the DEQ?
Yeah, he backpedaled. After I'd already had a plumber, the head of the local plumbers union,
all right,
saw me on TV and messaged me and said, that little bit isn't causing those kind of results. So he volunteered to come over and take a look at my indoor plumbing, and he said, if that little bit of galvanized was causing that kind of spikes, he says 3/4 of the house in Flint, including his, would have spikes more than that, because he's got more galvanized in his home, and other people do too.
Okay.
So anyway, the gentleman from the DEQ came yesterday and brought his test kits and went down and looked at it, and he said, oh no, that's not enough. After he'd seen what I had to say on Channel 12, he backpedaled a little bit on that. But he came out and he brought 3 test kits and proceeded to open my kitchen faucet and my bathroom sink faucet and let them run for 20 minutes, and then took samples.
Let them run for 20 minutes?
Yeah.
So he wanted to flush them?
Yeah.
That's what you do when you flush something, right?
Yeah, and then he took samples and said he was going to get them right to the lab. But he still can't get it through his head that even if it is that high in my kitchen sink, I'm not drinking the water. That's not how the lead got into my system. I have not drank any water out of there since November of 2015. It's got to be coming from me showering in it, which I no longer do. Fortunately, I've got a rain barrel, which I'm told is illegal, but I've been dumping that in the bathtub, and that's what I've been using to bathe with.
So you've been forced to bathe in rainwater?
Yeah, the rain barrel water that I put up so I could keep my garden watered.
And you live in a city in the state of Michigan which the Lower Peninsula, it's called a peninsula for a reason. It's surrounded on three sides by 95% of the United States of America's fresh surface water. And you live in a city, a developed city, right? I mean, this is a developed city. We're not talking of a small town. We're talking of a population at one time that was over 200,000 people. Home of General Motors, right?
Yes.
And you are forced to collect rainwater, to pour it into your bathtub, to bathe yourself.
Yes.
In a developed city. I want everyone watching this to really understand the gravity of this. And you know, I'm talking with Vicki Marks, and she is one of about 90,000 people that live in Flint, Michigan. There are others like her as well, but I want you to understand, I'm talking with one resident sharing her story with us. The reason I'm doing that is because I became friends with Vicki earlier this year. We've stayed in touch together, and she's been sharing these results with me. And finally it got to a point where I had enough of it, and I had to come here and see Vicki. Everyone needs to learn Vicki's story. Everybody needs to hear what's still taking place in the city of Flint. The United States of America, okay, folks? USA. Good old USA. So I'm sorry to cut you off like that, Vicki. I'm so passionate about what's taking place. It's utterly disgusting to me that we would allow this to happen in our own country, in the state of Michigan. You know, this is pure Michigan, right? You see Governor Snyder's campaign about pure Michigan.
It's pure bullshit.
Thank you, Vicki. Thank you for saying that. So what is your theory then? Let's hear your theory. I want to understand what you think. I don't care about all this, you know, DEQ guy trying to tell you it's a galvanized pipe and then realizing, oh, she ain't buying this story. I better backpedal. I'll come over. I'll turn the faucets on and let them run for 20 minutes. Now, when they do that, they clear out anything that's settled in the pipes. You know, and so for the viewers, how many times do you go to your kitchen sink, turn your faucet on, and let it run for 20 minutes before you fill up a glass of water? I know in my house, I go to the sink in my kitchen to get a glass of water. I flip it on, and I stick my finger under it 2 or 3 times to see when it's chilled, and then I put my glass under it. I don't let it run for no 20 minutes, maybe 30 seconds. So the DEQ are now taking your water sample test after flushing the pipe so they can get to whatever they think is a fresh, clean source of water. That's my guess why they done it.
And the thing is they recommend you flush your faucets before you use them, with or without a filter. Who can afford? We're paying the highest prices for water in the nation.
There you go.
You can't afford it. And when he had both those faucets cranked wide open yesterday for 20 minutes, I could just see my water meter going ding, 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 ding.
And you're going to have to pay for that.
Oh, yeah.
He come out, did that, ran your faucets 20 minutes. Now you're going to have to pay for that. But yet he's doing you a favor by being here, you know.
Yes.
I'm sure that was his attitude. I know I'm being sarcastic right now, and I apologize to the viewers. But again, I'm a little bit pissed off, to say the least.
You tend to get a little sarcastic when you're dealing with the government.
It's unfortunate too, because it's supposed to be by the people and for the people, right?
Yeah, not put it to the people.
Not put it to the people.
Yeah.
So where could this be how could this be happening then? If you have a copper service line that does come into your house that we can see, we don't know how far out it goes, but and your lines in your house are copper, and all of your fixtures are new. So how could this be happening? I mean, they looking at the results. I've been able to look at these results, and they just continually rise every time a water sample is taken. How can this happen?
Well, the money that President Trump gave to the state of Michigan, the $100 million to replace the lines, Mayor Weaver's big thing is she's going to replace 18,000, maybe even 20,000 lines in the city of Flint.
How many need to be replaced, Vicki?
All of the service lines, but they need to start with the mains. They're lead mains in the city. So even if they replace those service lines, you're still going to have lead breaking loose from those mains coming into the homes. It needs to be replaced starting at the mains, all the service lines, and everybody's infrastructure in their home, including their hot water heaters, refrigerators, washers, everything. I know people have gone through 2 or 3 washing machines in the last 3.5 years.
Because it's loaded up.
Because it's loaded up with all this stuff. Refrigerators, your ice makers and your fresh water in your refrigerators.
So that's something and that's something folks don't talk about. That's something folks don't even really think about. Your wash machines, your dishwashers, your hot water heaters, they're going to be full of all of this garbage. So they have to be replaced, but my guess is that's probably your responsibility to do.
Oh, yeah.
See.
Yeah, this $100 million is going to go, and it's going to take, they started using that this year, and they're going to replace 18, maybe 20,000 lines by the end of 2020. So.
Oh my God, 3 years.
Yeah.
And probably, half of what they need to replace, and that don't include the mains.
Right. But like the when this first happened, Harold with the locals plumbers union, the head of the local plumbers union, said he could get teams together, apprentices, and he could have enough people with the equipment to replace all the service lines in the city, and I believe the lead mains, within 2 years. But no, they're going to drag it out for 3 years, and they're parceling out the money. That $100 million isn't sitting in a bank account in the city of Flint. It's sitting in Snyder's hands. So he's drawing. I think he's drawing interest on this money going into his rainy day fund, while we wait for them to replace the service lines, which as far as I'm concerned, unless they replace from the lead mains all the service lines and all the infrastructure in my home, I will not drink the water.
Good.
And this week, Richard Baird, Snyder's left-hand man, I call him, I don't call him his right-hand man, was on with the mayor because he generously decided, for the people's peace of mind, instead of closing all 7 or 8 of the water pods that are now open, he's going to leave 4 of them open for us to get fresh bottled drinking water.
4?
Yeah, for the entire city of Flint.
4 places to get bottled water in the entire city of Flint.
Yeah.
4.
But the pipes aren't going to be, even the ones they're fixing, aren't going to be done for another 3 years. But yeah, they, as of September 1st, until the mayor negotiated with them, they were going to shut down all the water pods in the city as of September 1st.
They were going to shut them all down. The mayor negotiated and kept 4 for the city.
Got 4 of them stayed open.
Whopping 4.
Yeah.
Well, bless you, mayor.
Yeah.
I mean, come on, though.
Yeah.
For real.
But, and the only reason Richard Baird said that needs to be, he's leaving the 4 of them open, is because he knows people have been traumatized by the water, and even though the water is perfectly safe to drink and bathe in, for people's peace of mind, he's generously leaving 4 of the water pods open.
And so his name is Richard?
Richard Baird.
Okay, Dick Baird.
Mm-hmm.
Let me say to you, if you ever see this, you know, what a genuine human thing to do, because the residents in Flint are traumatized. They're poisoned, Dick. They're poisoned. So thank you so much. Sorry about that, Vicki, but I mean, seriously.
No.
Going to generously leave you 4 stations, 4 pods to get bottled water, mm-hmm. because residents are traumatized.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would like to meet this man.
Yeah.
Mr. Dick Baird.
Yeah. I says, well, he's right there, this close to Dick Snyder.
Yeah, hanging out with Dickie Snyder.
Yeah. So, but, basically that's what's going on. But, I'm very interested in the water sample I took for my bathtub today.
Yeah,
and to see what kind of lead levels coming through that. Because even though I may have some galvanized in my kitchen, it doesn't make any difference what the lead level is in the kitchen. That's not how I got 38.4 lead level in my blood.
Right.
Because I don't drink and I don't cook with that water.
And you don't take a bath in your kitchen sink.
No. I'm short, but I'm not that short.
Vicki still has her sense of humor, though, folks. She's a.
It's one thing they haven't taken yet.
She's a beautiful spirit. She has a kind soul and a great sense of humor. Still, even living through this garbage that she has to live through currently. So, what can some of the viewers do? Is there numbers? Are there people? Should viewers call Dick Baird and Dick Snyder? Should viewers be sending emails? I mean, would that help?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Well, as far as everybody's concerned, Flint was fixed 3 years ago. When they first came out, oh yeah, the city's been poisoned, and we had all the celebrities and CNN and Headline News and Fox News and all the local medias were all on it.
Right.
Well, then Cheeto decides to run, and all of a sudden Flint's out of the spotlight. And as far as anybody knows, even people that live within 2 counties of here don't know that Flint still does not have clean, safe, affordable drinking water. Okay. And if you don't think you should worry about Flint, worry about the town you're living in, because you could be next.
It can happen anywhere.
It can happen anywhere.
It can happen anywhere.
Look at Line 5. That spring's a leak.
40 million people get drinking water up there.
Yeah.
Now guess what? 40 million people have the same problem the city of Flint has.
That's
over
right.
a pipeline.
Right.
Yeah. Thanks for mentioning that. I've been working hard on that, but it's about you today. It's about Flint residents today. And so you heard from Vicki. Let's blast the governor's office, Richard Snyder, or AKA Dick Snyder, and the left hand of Governor Snyder, Richard Baird,
who is Snyder's transition manager, whatever that is. I think he just does all the dirty work.
Could be. So Dick Baird, again, I'm sure you can go to the State of Michigan website and find contact information for both of these. I would call them gentlemen in any other day and age, but today we'll just call them fellas or dicks.
Yeah.
You can go find the information for Double Dicks on the State of Michigan website, and if you would, please. I have a tribal elder with me today. I'm not going to call his name out, but he's looking at me and he's kind of chuckling with my last statement here. I'll probably hear about it in the ride home. But if you would, send them emails, blow up their phones, because I know they'll have numbers to at least their assistants. You probably won't ever be able to speak to one of these fellas because they're going to be too busy all the time, saving Michigan.
Keeping Michigan pure.
Keeping Michigan pure. Anything else you want to add, Vicki, before we sign off here?
No,
you're a trooper.
I just like to state again, today it's Flint, tomorrow it could be your city, your town. The government is all about the almighty dollar. They're not about caring about the citizens. What happened in Flint, I don't consider racism. It's a classism. They didn't poison just the minorities that live in Flint, even though Flint is 47%, 57% minority. They poisoned all of us, and they didn't poison us by the color of our skin. They poisoned us by the money in our pockets.
Yep, I agree with you 100%, Vicki. So let's draw this to a conclusion. I'm gonna swing the camera back around here. So, folks, that was Vicki Marks down here in Flint. Again, Desmond Berry helping out Sandy with Environmental Coffee House. I hope everyone had an opportunity to really see what's taking place down here in the city of Flint, and hope you continue to follow Environmental Coffee House. I'm going to stay on this. I'm going to stay on this issue here in Flint. It's something I've been passionate about for a few years, working with my family, bringing water down here, working with my local community back up in Traverse City, and the Grand Traverse Band, getting bottled water donations and bringing them down. But we got to do more than that. So, like I said before, contact Dick Snyder and Dick Baird, and let's see if we can't make these folks hear from people like Vicki. And I know there's plenty of others, and hopefully at some point in time I get a chance to talk to them as well. So, thanks for watching. Peace and love to everyone. We'll see you again. Bye-bye.